Hey, welcome to Craig Walker Coaching. My name is Craig Walker, and today I want to talk to you and share with you what I've learned about overcoming fear. Yeah, I know some of you think that's not a battle that I can win. Oh, yes, it is. Let me help. Well, hi everyone. Thanks again for joining me at Craig Walker Coaching. And before we jump into our video, I wanted to jump in here and tell you, if you'll wait to the end, I'm going to show you, watch all the way to the end rather, I'm going to show you a little tour, take you on a tour of the house that I've just finished. Now, many of you know that I've been building my own house, one board at a time, one nail, one screw at a time, and it's done. When I sit back and look at it, I marvel. Now, some of you know that in the last year, I've had open heart surgery. I've had 5 bypasses. And even with all of that, from the time we started the house to the time we finished was 1 year and 3 weeks. I'm blown away by the accomplishment. I'm overwhelmed. When I look at it, I think, God, how did this happen? There's really only one answer. It's by the grace of God. And I know it. I'm so excited about it. I'm proud of our accomplishment. And so stick to the end. I want to show you what we think God has done. All right, enough about the house. How do you learn to win over fear? You see, fear is something that I struggled with most of my life. I genuinely believed that something was wrong with me. I genuinely believed that if you knew me, you wouldn't like me. Yet, like most of you, I know a lot about God. I get the omnis of God, that He's all-knowing, He's all-powerful, He's all good, He's all-loving. Yet somehow I still struggled with fear. It robbed me of peace. It robbed me of joy. It robbed me of my potential. May I ask you a question? What are you afraid of? May I give you a challenge? Don't let fear rob you. Deal with it. Now, here's what I learned that changed my life. I had to learn to trust that God is always there for me. Always. Listen, say it again. It's so simple, you could miss it. I had to learn to trust that God is always there for me. No matter what I'm going through in life, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what circumstances I deal with. It doesn't matter. God is always there for me. When I get into trouble, it could be something my own fault. It could be someone else's fault or nobody's fault. It just doesn't matter because God is always there for me. When I'm dealing with a hard time, a hurtful time, and I have a need in my life and I cry out to God in prayer, I can trust that God is always there for me. He's always working on my behalf. To get there, I had to admit that the knowledge of God I had not translated into the trust in God. It just hadn't. And that's really hard for us to do. Sometimes it's very difficult to recognize it. So I want to give you a story that I think will help you see the difference. It was late in the day, weary from a period of extended ministry. Jesus has been teaching. He's been healing the sick. He's been casting out demons. Don't forget dueling with the unbelief of the religious elite. And he comes to the end of the day and he's just tired. He turns to the guys and says, guys, in effect, I got to have a break. He looks at them and said, let's cross over to the other side of the lake. So they took Jesus in the boat and they started out leaving the crowds behind. Now remember, the sun had set late in the day. This is when every experienced fisherman knows the wind is laid and the sea has become like glass. Beautiful time. And besides, they're following Jesus. So when you follow Jesus, everything always works out perfectly, right? Wrong. Listen to what comes next. But soon a fierce storm came up. High waves were breaking into the boat and it began to fill with water. This is no ordinary storm. Matthew uses a term that describes the suddenness of the storm to be that of like a tsunami. In the midst of this incredible storm, the Bible tells us Jesus is asleep. The disciples, however, they were in chaos. Matthew, the committed landlubber, I'm guessing that he's probably leaning over the side of the boat, chucking his daily donuts. The experienced fishermen, they're fighting at the oars just to stay afloat. There really was chaos in the boat at this time. They're yelling. Matthew tells us they woke Jesus up with their shouting. Jesus, wake up! Pull up a scene from the movie Titanic. You get an idea of what was going on that stormy night on the Sea of Galilee in that particular boat. Then Mark adds a detail, however. I think this detail unlocks the mystery of your struggle and mine to trust. This is why we fear. Mark tells us the disciples said, "Teacher, don't you care that we're going to drown?" I know they didn't say it like that, but that's what they said. "Teacher, don't you care that we are going to drown?" I think we should underline those words, teacher, and then don't you care. Notice the disciples, they didn't say, "Jesus, do you know what we're going through?" It's kind of like, we get that. We understand, you know. They didn't say, "Teacher, do you know anything about dealing with storms, stilling storms?" There across their mind. They got that. They knew that he could. The only thing they really cared about, because you know and you can, and nothing's happening. So the only thing I can conclude is you don't care. When the tsunamis of life wash over us, the question that you and I really ask is, the real wonder that we have is, Jesus, do you care? Can I give you some help? This is what I've learned. This is what delivered me, set me free from my fear. This is why I can live today. Honestly, I can say I live fearlessly today. Let me share with you the things that I've learned. I can give it to you in a faith acronym. Are you ready? F, it stands for face your real fear. We got to face our real fear. And this is hard to do. Your soul is in turmoil over your son or your daughter. I get that. But what you're really fearing, I bet, is it, Jesus, do you care enough to help me? Jesus, I know, and this would be me. Jesus, I know you care enough to help pretty people. I know you care enough to help smart people. I know you care enough to help talented and gifted people. And I know you care enough to help people that are really good and they kind of got it all together. But Jesus, I'm not really any of those. So my real question is, Jesus, do you care enough to help me? That's it, isn't it? When you get to college, your son was arrested last night. When you learn or discover that your daughter has ditched the church. When you look at your ministry and you see that it's just tanking. When you see all those things and you look at your own soul and see your own shortcomings and your own not enoughs, what you really want to know, and this is hard for us to admit, is, Jesus, do you really care for me? Can I tell you what I did, and I think maybe you do too? You know what we often do? We often blame ourselves. We say, it's my faith. I'm so little of faith. I'm so weak in my faith. It's my fault. I'm the idiot. I'm the nerd. I'm whatever. And we blame ourselves. What we never do is admit what we're really thinking. We're not really thinking those things. What we're really thinking is, Jesus, I don't know that you're going to show up in my circumstances. When you can finally face that fear, your soul will be marked and transformation will begin. Now you want to take the next step to continue on, and that's to ask God for help. Now that you're at the place where you can finally admit, God, I just don't really believe like I should. Like, the man that brought his son that was demon possessed to Jesus and said, Lord, if you can heal my son. Jesus said, if I can. And the man looked in kind of total shock and surprise and said, Lord, I believe. Help my unbelief. That's the prayer that you and I need to pray. Lord, I believe you could help my child. But God, I really do struggle with a lot of unbelief. I don't know that you will. Help me, Lord. Lord, my ministry is in trouble. God, I'm doing all I can. Lord, I just want to know, will you do something? Because I know you can. And God, I know you know what's going on, but will you help my unbelief? Lord, please help me. Finally, when you've asked for help, then you begin to investigate the facts. Your transformation has taken a new step when you take this. You're stepping into the realm of truth. You're dealing with what you thought was the error, and you're bringing out the truth of the error, and that is you're discovering what you really deal with. Here it is. As it turns out, you look at the facts, you investigate the facts. What's causing your fear? It's not you. As it turns out, you have a greater reason to believe than the disciples had that stormy night on the Sea of Galilee. You do. You see, the disciples had the miracles of Jesus. You and I have the crucifixion of Jesus. The miracles tell us what God can do. The crucifixion tells us what God will do. If God didn't spare his own son, listen to this. Romans chapter 8, Paul says, what shall we say about such wonderful things as these? If God is for us, then who could ever be against us? Who? It's kind of like, well, nobody. Then he asks this question, since God did not spare even his own son, but gave him up for us all, won't he also give us everything else? I know it's a rhetorical question, but you need to answer it. Since God did not spare even his own son, you know what a parent would do for a child. There's no sacrifice we wouldn't make. There's no price we wouldn't pay to protect our own children. Yet God delivered up his own son so that you and I could have what's best in life. Wow. If God didn't spare his own son, just think about it. Would he not also freely give us everything else? Would he not also freely answer your prayers? Would he not also show up in your ministry? Would he not also what? He's always working on your behalf. Investigate the truth. And then finally you come to the place that you say, I get it. There's nothing God wouldn't do. You begin to trust in your discovery. This is new to you. I know you knew all this, but now you're getting it. You're moving from here to here. You're trusting in your discovery. If you've concluded there's nothing God would withhold from me, if you get that, trust in that discovery. Hang on to it. And the Bible says this is where transformation goes deep, and like a screw being embedded into wood, it gets more, your transformation becomes more deeply entrenched in your soul. It becomes who you are. You begin to default in your belief and to trust. Scripture says you shall know the truth, and the truth will make you free. When I got it, it just set me free. I was like a bird let out of a cage, like a prisoner let out of a cell, like Craig Walker let out of a shell. I began to be the person God had created me to be. I began to live the life that I was born to love. Then you must take one more step, and that's what H stands for, is to hold on to your faith. I need to tell you this. I don't want you to miss this. There will be times that you cry out for help, and it will seem like Jesus is asleep in the boat. His silence, or he doesn't care. Let me encourage you, don't misinterpret. Don't be fooled by the silence of God to think it's the lack of care of God. It's not. If only you could see behind the curtain when you pray. If only you could see behind the curtain of into eternity when you hurt. You would see God dispatching angels, organizing circumstances, creating things to cause everything to work together for your good. Well, friends, I hope this has been helpful to you. If it has, please hit that like button. And if you would, this would really be of a help to me. If you would, tell me how this has been helpful to you. Share it in a comment down below. Hey, until next time, may God help you to live the life that you were born to love.